Today's lesson is going to be the fourth and final lesson in group communication and presentations. Our focus for this lesson is group presentations of your findings and then evaluation of your group. So we'll talk about two objectives. So how do you present group findings in various formats? And then how do you evaluate the group dynamics as well as the presentation quality? So different presentation formats are called deliverables. So this is products of your work that you can provide to somebody else. So if you are an outside firm that has been hired to perform research or come up with potential solutions for a business, you would then have deliverables to give to the company. This can be in the form of a written deliverable, an oral, or a virtual format. A lot of the time, these deliverables include information, analysis of the problem, and then recommendations for solutions that they should follow. As far as the written formats, it's something called a written brief. A written brief is a short document that can describe the problem at hand, background information, the process of finding a solution, decisions, and then rationale for that decision, so that the reader can quickly understand and evaluate the group's product. Most written briefs are about 1 to 2 pages long, and when preparing a brief, you want to begin by describing your group's tasks. So what problems are you attempting to solve and why? And then briefly just provide background information that the reader will need to evaluate in order to figure out and adequately understand the problem. And then finally, you just want to present solutions, so steps in the solution and a timeline that they should follow in order to implement that solution. And then, close out your written brief with a short paragraph describing how the recommendation will actually solve the problem, as well as potential hiccups or bumps in the road that they could run into. There's also something called a comprehensive report. So it provides a detailed review of the problem-solving process that you used in order to come to that recommendation. It's usually organized into sections that go along with the 6 steps of the problem-solving process that we talked about last lesson. Comprehensive reports can usually be pretty long, and so in that case, you would use something called an executive summary, and it's basically a 1-page synopsis or summary of what they can find in the report. So that way, if they want to just read the overview of what the comprehensive report is about, but not necessarily have to dig into the lengthy document, the executive summary offers that 1-page overview. As well as that executive summary has enough information in it to highlight what the full document would entail if they chose to read it. As far as oral formats of presenting your information, it's just that. It's like an oral presentation that you would deliver to a group of whoever you were doing the problem-solving process and coming up with a solution for. Within that oral format, you would want to follow the same components that you would in a written brief. An oral report also can give a review of a group's problem-solving process, just to kind of familiarize the audience with the process that you all went through and how you came to the potential solution that they should that you're recommending they take. Oral reports tend to take about 30 to 60 minutes, so they're pretty lengthy. Like, you are explaining your process from start to finish, providing all the background information, giving them implementation recommendations. So it's not going to be like this quick, 5 to 10 minute deal. And then usually panel discussions can be an oral format. It's just where you sit and discuss, the problem at hand in front of a group or audience. There's usually a moderator. So the best visual I can give you of this would be presidential debates. So they have a moderator, and then the candidates are up on stage discussing back and forth these particular problems or different areas of the government and their points of view. And really, the panelists are able to interact with one another and provide supporting evidence for their stances. But it's definitely important to have that moderator so that somebody's there to basically keep the flow of the process moving smoothly. It's also something called a symposium. So symposium is just, it's a set of people delivering oral reports, one after another by group members before people who are interested in the work of that group. So you might, whenever you get into your career, you might go to a health symposium and listen to people provide oral reports of different research that they've been participating in. Speakers usually can have slideshows of information, but you want to make sure that they seamlessly flow from speaker to speaker. You don't want to have to get up and switch out the PowerPoints and all that stuff. You should make it a seamless process. It also, with a symposium, there can be a question and answer session at the end, and that allows members to ask questions and then get answers based on the speaker's expertise. All right, the final format for presenting group findings is going to be your virtual format. So remote access report, basically just a computer audio visual presentation. So just like I'm doing here where I am recording an audio lesson, you could do the same exact thing of going through a visual presentation and having your voiceover explaining the process. Usually you don't want to have more than 15 to 20 slides, but the slides are very precise, just an outline of information and bullet points. You don't want to have complete sentences, and we discussed that back at the beginning of the school year whenever you were designing visual aids, making sure that you're providing brief bits of text and not long paragraphs of information. Also including charts and things like that to give a visual example of the information that you're sharing is also a really good idea. And then there's streaming video. So that would be like a Zoom conference or Zoom meeting where people actually are live with you and you can interact with them live. But it's also can be recorded and then posted to another website for other people to access later if they weren't able to attend during the live recording. As far as evaluating the effectiveness of groups, there's something called group dynamics, and that's just how well the people within the group work together towards their overall goal. It's best to evaluate group dynamics, judging each member's effort in terms of the responsibilities over the entire group. So making sure that they carried their weight within the group and that they, followed those 5 group responsibilities that we talked about during the very first lesson in this unit. They're focused on the goal. They do their outside work and come back with their individual assigned work completed, that they ask for input from everybody. Also, you can have a component to evaluate group dynamics by having each member evaluate themselves. So maybe have a questionnaire that they would fill out for themselves, but also you can have questionnaires where they fill out the questionnaires or surveys about their other group members, evaluating them as well. And then it's also really good to offer suggestions for improvement, because if you're going to have to constantly work with the same people in a group, it's important that you are improving your communication and group dynamics, because if people just sweep things under the rug or just continue to avoid dealing with conflicts that arose, the effectiveness of the group is only going to be harmed. Group presentations. So effectiveness depends on both quality of individual performance and the overall group performance. So there is a saying in the manufacturing industry, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So you want to focus on that weakest employee and help bring them up to the same level as the rest of the employees, or you can only be as strong of a team as that weakest team member allows you to be. So encouraging one another, helping each other improve and grow is ultimately going to help the overall performance and quality of your group working together in the future. And then here's an example of a performance evaluation for a group. Basically, they have the group member's name, your name. A lot of the time people don't want to fill in their name, or if they do have to fill in their name, they're not as honest. So giving the option to fill this out anonymously might warrant more honest opinions and rating. So it looks like they're rating on a scale of 1 to 7, and then they're rating the individual performance basically on the content, structure, and delivery of the individual person, and then the overall group performance. Again, the content, the structure, and delivery of the overall group as a whole. We're not going to do these reflection questions, but you are going to complete a open note quiz over all 4 lessons that we've learned throughout this unit, just to close out this last week that I have my seniors in class. I'm not going to give you any additional assignment other than completing your guided notes to this lesson, as well as finishing that. There's a 10-question quiz over lessons 1 through 4. The questions do go in order of the lessons. So you're welcome to use your notes as you complete that.